The floor of Terminal 3 gleamed like a mirror that Diwali morning, alive with reflections of thousands of rushing feet, but everything stopped, truly stopped, when the K-9 unit suddenly tightened its circle around a single small child crouched near Gate 42. In the middle of that roaring ocean of suitcases, security announcements, and festival chaos, silence pooled around the boy as the dogs sat, not growled, not barked, but sat their trained eyes fixed on the messy chalk scribbles he had been drawing on the polished tiles. People froze mid-step, as if the universe was holding its breath to read what that child had written. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us how fragile and extraordinary the human heart is, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real and meaningful stories to life. The crowd slowly parted as the boy's shaky hand kept moving, dragging a broken chalk piece he must have picked up from some forgotten festival decoration. He wore an oversized sweater, sleeves dangling long past his fingers, and his hair was uncombed, sticking out like he had slept on an airport bench, which, as some would later learn, was painfully close to the truth. His mother was nowhere in sight, and yet he wasn't crying. Instead, he drew with an intense, trembling concentration, as though every mark on the floor carried the weight of something he wasn't able to say out loud. The K-9 handlers approached carefully, whispering into their radios, but none of the dogs moved aggressively. These were highly trained sniffer dogs, alert, disciplined, and used to the pressure of finding threats amid crowds. But now they behaved differently. One of them, an older Labrador with cloudy eyes, inched forward and lay down beside the boy, placing its head gently near his knee. Another dog sat on his other side, tail still, gaze soft. It was as if they sensed not danger, but a kind of quiet desperation that only animals seem to recognize instantly. Travelers watched, confused and curious, taking slow steps backward. A woman dropped her boarding pass. A man canceled his taxi booking. Someone began recording, but even he lowered the phone halfway, as though the moment demanded reverence rather than spectacle. The boy paused in his drawing and looked at the dogs as if he'd been expecting them. On the floor, his chalk lines formed a shape, uneven, broken, incomplete, but unmistakably a home, a square with a roof, a little door, 3 stick figures. Above it, he had scribbled something in crooked Hindi letters. Ana jaldi ma, come soon, mom. The handlers exchanged glances. One of them radioed for the on-duty counselor and child welfare officer who were positioned at the airport for holiday rush situations. That Diwali season was notorious for lost luggage, missed flights, and overwhelmed passengers. But lost children or abandoned ones were among the most heartbreaking. When the welfare officer arrived, the boy froze. He clutched his chalk so tightly that the tiny piece snapped in half, scattering white dust on his hands. The older Labrador nudged him softly, as if assuring him the world wasn't closing in. Slowly, gently, the adults coaxed him away from the drawing, guiding him to the corner seating area. He walked stiffly, like every step took courage. The dogs followed without command, their presence forming an invisible shield around him. Even exhausted travelers felt something shift in the atmosphere, as though those dogs were carrying a truth too heavy for the boy to carry alone. He sat down, eyes lowered, feet swinging above the floor. The counselor offered water, then a small biscuit packet, which he accepted without a word. Minutes passed before he finally whispered that he and his mother had arrived at the airport the previous night. They were supposed to fly home to Patna for Diwali, but somewhere between check-in and security, his mother had told him to wait on a bench for just 2 minutes while she sorted something out. 2 minutes stretched into an hour. Then the night, He woke up curled on the same bench, the festival lights still flickering above him, but his mother gone. He thought maybe she was lost, maybe she was scared, maybe she couldn't find him. So he drew the only thing he could think of the home they were supposed to return to, hoping that if she saw it, she would know he was waiting. But deep inside, though he didn't say it aloud, the dogs had sensed something else. He feared she might not be coming back. While the welfare team reviewed CCTV footage and made announcements across terminals, the boy stayed seated between the Labradors. Travelers stopped by to offer sweets or toys, but the officers declined politely. They didn't want him overwhelmed. Still, people stayed nearby, whispering prayers, their own Diwali rush forgotten. Hours slipped by. Afternoon gave way to evening. The sun descended in streaks of gold through the glass walls of T3, casting long shadows on the floor where the chalk drawing still remained. No one had the heart to wipe it away. Finally, a lead appeared. The mother had been seen at the domestic departure gate around midnight, not confused or lost, but hurried, distressed, holding her bag tightly, tears smudging her face. She boarded a flight to Kolkata alone. No ticket for the child, no check-in record, no outgoing call logs. When the officers shared this with the senior team, the terminal fell into a strange, aching quiet. Some might call it abandonment. Some might call it desperation, but none of them voiced the word in front of the child. The dogs pressed closer to him when they sensed the adult's tension. The counselor sat beside him and asked softly if he remembered anything else. The boy hesitated, then said he had overheard his mother speaking to someone on the phone the day before. She had begged for an extension on rent, apologizing over and over. She'd talked about debts, about not wanting to burden her son anymore. Even then, the boy hadn't understood. But now, staring at the floor, he whispered that maybe she had gone somewhere to fix things. The counselor swallowed hard. The boy looked too small for a world with such heavy choices. Meanwhile, an airline supervisor who had been watching from afar stepped closer. She was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, a tired smile, and a badge that read Ritu. She'd been at the airport for 18 years and had seen every kind of human emotion rush through its sliding doors. Yet something about the child tugged at her so fiercely that she knelt down without thinking and simply said that he could stay with the welfare unit for now, that he was not alone, that Diwali was about light, and they would not let darkness swallow him. He nodded slowly. Then, for the first time since morning, he looked up and asked if he could finish his drawing. They led him back to gate 42. The dogs trotted with renewed purpose. Travelers stepped aside. The little chalk house still lay there, incomplete. He knelt and added a fourth stick figure next to the three, a woman with a round dot over her head. Ritu, the supervisor, realized. The dogs lay around him again, forming a wordless circle of protection. Something changed after that. Ritu began visiting him every break she had. The boy, whose name was Arav, started to smile more. On the third day, he asked if the chalk drawing could remain until he left the terminal. The housekeeping staff agreed, just for him, choosing compassion over instructions. Investigations continued, but the truth grew clearer. His mother might not return, not soon anyway. Maybe she thought leaving him with authorities at a major airport would ensure he was cared for. Maybe she believed she had nothing left to offer except that one desperate act. The officers didn't judge her. Life can corner people in ways others will never understand. Days later, after paperwork, legal procedures, and child welfare protocols, Ritu made a decision that surprised even her. She applied to become his temporary guardian, an option allowed under emergency foster arrangements. She didn't know if she was ready. She didn't know if she was enough. But when Arav slipped his hand into hers as naturally as a child searching for sunlight, she felt something inside her settle, like a door opening quietly after years of being locked. On the morning they prepared to leave the airport together, Arav walked one last time to the faded chalk drawing. The house was still there. The stick figures still held hands. He touched the chalk lines with gentle fingers, then looked up at Ritu with a small, hopeful smile. He wasn't replacing his mother. He wasn't forgetting her. But he was stepping into a life where someone had chosen to stay.